Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for hanging with me on this Thursday, and if you've spent some time watching my videos, I really do appreciate that. All right, so a jig is a bait that I've talked a lot about recently, and I think there's a few things I really want to note that should help you catch more bass on a jig. So when I talk about a jig, this isn't necessarily a bait that you're just going to pick up and go fish 100-yard stretches all day. This is more of a bait that you can implement when you find condensed areas with bass. So typically you're not gonna find those bass with a jig. You may find them with a Texas rig, you may find them with a spinner bait or a chatter bait, but it is a great bait to go back when you have changing conditions. A jig is going to get you bigger bites. Most one-day tournaments are won on a jig. The reason you don't see a whole lot about this in the bigger tournaments, the professional tournaments, is because those are multi-day events, and the inconsistency of a jig is very important to note. I've had a lot of days where I was catching them really good on Thursday. It was tapering off a little bit on Friday, and I went from getting 9 or 10 bites Thursday to 5 or 6 bites Friday to 1 or no bites Saturday. So that's just kind of the nature of the beast. You can win or you can fall on your face, and I think it's important to understand basically how to keep it on the win side and not the fall on your face side. So the first thing would be searching with that bait. You can fish through an area that may have a ton of fish with it, or in that area rather, and not get bites on a jig. I mean, that's again the nature of the beast. So it is important to not go necessarily looking for it, but it is important to have it and fish it a little bit. Now, I think another big thing that a lot of people don't necessarily realize when it comes to jig fishing is a full moon. Bass get on a jig really good on the full moon. I'm not gonna go into theories on why that happens. I will just go with the facts that bass like a jig on full moons. So if you have that, that is very important to imply that. And then I think the last thing that I really think is important to note when it comes to jig fishing is jigs come in a bunch of different sizes. Some jigs are very small and some jigs are very big, and there are a lot of in-betweens there. And I think if you just try one, you're not really going to get the full outlook. You know, they make a bunch of different jigs with a bunch of different size hooks and different style heads, and it's important to have more than just one, because a lot of times bass are going to bite a jig on the fall, and a lot of times they're going to bite it while you're crawling it. So it really is a completely different game. You know, it's like baseball and softball. Yeah, they look very similar, but they are two completely different sports. So you may have days where a ball head and dragging that and getting it to kind of flare and be upright like a defensive crayfish, or you're gonna have days where it's all about the fall, and maybe it's imitating bluegill that are scurrying through an area and that quick fall is what the deal is. Or maybe it's just days where you've got to drop it on their head, but that's the only way to entice bigger bites. And if you do entice those bites, you don't fall on your face and only catch 1 fish or no fish. You get 5 of those bites, you can win the tournament, and I think that's what you see. If you don't believe me, go look on Major League Fishing's website, go to the BFLs, go to the Bass Fishing League and look at the tournament wins, what most guys talk about, and I will tell you, you will be blown away by how many guys win tournaments on jigs. But again, I've done this enough to know, and I'm one of those guys that did win a tournament on a jig, but I'm also the guy that has fallen on his face so many times because that thought, this is what's going to be the winning deal. Now, there are going to be a bunch of checks made on a chatterbait. There's going to be a bunch of top 10s made with a spinner bait and a frog and all these other baits, but the guys that are jig fishing are going to be the guys that win. There's going to be 10 of them. 1 or 2 of them are going to do really good. 1 may win. 1 may be in the top 10 or top 5. The other 8 guys are going to fall on their face. So it is really a double-edged sword, but I think it is important to at least know when it is important to you and when you got to try it. So try a jig, but be very careful with that bait. I don't think that gets talked about enough. Good luck to you guys, and I'll see you on the water.